Poor mom texted a stranger for baby formula. She didn't know he was a CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from right now? Please drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. It was just after 11:30 at night, the kind of late hour when the world feels quieter, but problems feel louder. In a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, the lights were dim, the air was stale, and a single lamp flickered beside a worn-out couch. On the kitchen counter sat an empty can of baby formula, turned upside down, as if somehow a few more scoops might fall out if it waited long enough. They did not. A baby cried from the other room. Not a loud cry, not dramatic, just tired, hungry. The kind of cry that comes from trust, from the belief that someone will come. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and checked the time on her phone again. 11:34. The nearest 24-hour store was almost 6 miles away. Her car had been repossessed 2 weeks ago. The bus stopped running after 10. On the screen of her phone, her bank balance read $9.82. She sat on the edge of the couch, shoulders slumped, staring at that number like it might change if she stared long enough. It did not. She had promised herself she would never do this, never ask, never beg, never put herself in a position where she owed anyone anything. But she looked toward the bedroom, toward the soft crying that was slowly breaking her heart, and the promise cracked. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She opened her messages and tapped a name she thought she recognized. Someone from an old contact list. Someone she barely remembered adding months ago after a job interview that went nowhere. She assumed it was a number that no longer mattered. She typed slowly, deleting words, rewriting them, her hands shaking. "I am so sorry to bother you this late. I know this is embarrassing, but my baby is out of formula, and I do not know who else to ask. I just need enough to get through tonight. I promise I will pay it back." She stared at the message for a long moment. Her chest tightened. Her pride screamed at her to stop. The baby cried again. She closed her eyes and pressed send. The message delivered instantly. She did not know that the number she had just texted did not belong to a friend, or a coworker, or anyone from her past. It belonged to a man sitting alone in a quiet penthouse office, reviewing late-night reports. A man who ran a billion-dollar company. A man who had everything except someone who truly needed him. Her phone buzzed. She froze. A reply appeared on the screen, and in that moment, everything about her life was about to change. The baby finally quieted, not because he was full, but because exhaustion had won. She stood in the doorway of the bedroom for a moment, watching his tiny chest rise and fall. The room smelled faintly of baby powder and clean laundry that had been washed too many times. The crib had been a gift. Almost everything in this room had been a gift, or second-hand, or paid for with money she no longer had. She closed the door halfway and leaned her forehead against the wall. This was not how she imagined motherhood. 6 months ago, her life looked different. She had a job at a small medical billing office, nothing fancy, but steady, 40 hours a week, health insurance, a paycheck that arrived on time. She had planned carefully. She had budgeted. She had believed that if she worked hard and stayed quiet, things would be okay. Then the company downsized. Her position was temporarily eliminated, which turned out to mean permanently gone. She picked up shifts wherever she could, grocery stores, cleaning offices at night, folding clothes at a discount outlet on weekends. None of it lasted. None of it paid enough. And none of it came with childcare. Her phone buzzed again on the coffee table. She did not look at it right away. She walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator, even though she already knew what was inside. Half a carton of milk, a container of leftovers from 3 days ago, a bottle of water. That was it. She closed the door gently, as if loud noise might somehow make things worse. The truth was simple and cruel. She had fallen behind. On rent, on utilities, on life. The eviction notice sat folded inside a drawer, hidden beneath old mail and grocery receipts. She had not thrown it away. She could not bring herself to. Seeing it made everything too real, too final. She checked the calendar on the wall. Rent was due again in 10 days. She laughed quietly, the sound hollow and tired. 10 days might as well have been 10 minutes. She returned to the couch and finally picked up her phone. The screen was still lit. The message thread was open. Her breath caught when she saw it. The stranger had replied. The message was short, calm, not judgmental. No questions that felt sharp or suspicious. He asked where she was. He asked how old the baby was. He asked if there was a store nearby. That was all. No lecture, no accusation, no silence. Her fingers trembled as she typed back. She answered carefully, afraid that one wrong word might make him disappear. She explained about the distance, about the bus, about the hour. She apologized again, even though she had already said sorry more times than she could count. When she sent the message, she realized her hands were cold. She set the phone down and hugged her arms around herself. This was the part she hated most, the waiting, the not knowing, the feeling that her dignity was stretched thin, like a rope that might snap at any moment. She thought about her mother, who used to say that asking for help was not weakness, it was survival. At the time, she never imagined she would understand that sentence this deeply. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she picked it up immediately. The reply did not promise anything. It did not make grand gestures. It simply said to stay awake and keep her phone close. She stared at the words, trying to read between the lines. For the first time that night, something loosened in her chest. Not hope, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, the fear was not quite as heavy as it had been an hour ago. She looked toward the bedroom again, listening to the soft, uneven breathing of her child, and whispered a promise she had made many nights before. "I am trying," she said quietly. "I really am." And somewhere across the city, a man she had never met was already making a decision that would change both of their lives, even though neither of them understood it yet. She sat very still on the couch, the phone resting in her palm like it might vanish if she held it too tightly. The stranger did not text back right away. Minutes passed. The apartment felt louder in the silence. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock above the sink, the distant sound of a car passing outside. Every second stretched, thin and fragile. She told herself not to expect anything. People ask questions all the time. That did not mean they stayed. Just as she began to lower the phone, it buzzed again. He asked one more thing. Not about her, not about her situation, just about the baby. "How much does he usually eat?" the message read. She frowned slightly. It was an odd question, not the kind someone asked out of curiosity or pity. It felt practical, focused, as if he was solving a problem instead of judging a story. She replied honestly. She mentioned ounces. She mentioned how often he woke at night. She almost apologized again, but stopped herself halfway through typing and deleted the word. The response came faster this time. He told her to check her phone balance again in a few minutes. He did not explain why. She stared at the screen, her heart beating just a little faster. A dozen thoughts raced through her mind. Was this a joke? A mistake? A misunderstanding that would embarrass her even more than she already was? She did not ask. She did what he said. She set the phone down and waited. In another part of the city, far above street level, a man leaned back in a leather chair, eyes fixed on his own phone. The office around him was quiet, glass walls reflecting the city lights. A half-finished report sat open on his desk, forgotten. He read her messages again, slowly, carefully. He noticed the way she explained things without exaggeration, the way she apologized without sounding desperate, the way she answered questions directly, without trying to sell a story. This did not feel like a scam. This felt like someone who had run out of options. He did not ask for her name. He did not offer his. He made a decision instead. Back in the apartment, her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, confused. A notification from her banking application appeared on the screen. Deposit received. She blinked, sure she was misreading it. She opened the application. The number refreshed. Her balance was no longer $9.82. It was $69.82. Her breath caught so sharply that she had to cover her mouth with her hand. Another message appeared. "Please get what your baby needs. We can talk later." That was all. No conditions, no instructions, no reminder to pay it back. Her eyes filled with tears she had been holding back for weeks. She did not cry loudly. She did not fall apart. She just sat there, shoulders shaking, relief washing over her so suddenly it left her dizzy. She typed a reply, erased it, typed again. Thank you felt too small. Sorry felt wrong. Promises felt unnecessary. I will, she finally wrote. Thank you. He replied with a single word. Good. She looked at that word for a long time. Good. Not generous, not heroic, just good. She stood up, moving quietly, careful not to wake the baby. She grabbed her jacket and slipped on her shoes. The store was still far, but rideshare prices dropped after midnight. She could make it work now. As she stepped outside, cool air hitting her face, she did not think about who he was or why he helped. She only knew one thing. For the first time in days, she was walking toward a solution, not away from a problem. And on the other side of the city, the man placed his phone face down on the desk and returned to his work, unaware that a simple transfer and a few calm messages had already tied his life to hers in a way neither of them could undo. The store was almost empty when she arrived. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, casting pale reflections across polished floors. The shelves were fully stocked, but to her, they had never looked so overwhelming. So many choices, so many prices. She stood in the baby aisle for a long moment, gripping her phone like a lifeline, afraid that if she blinked, the balance would disappear. She picked up the same brand she had been buying for months. Nothing special, nothing expensive, just what her baby tolerated without crying afterward. She checked the price twice, then 3 times. Her hands trembled as she placed it in the cart. At the register, she held her breath while the cashier scanned the can. The total appeared on the screen. She tapped her card, heart pounding, waiting for the familiar rejection. Approved. The sound felt unreal. She swallowed hard, nodded a thank you she barely remembered saying, and walked out of the store, clutching the bag to her chest as if it could vanish. Once inside the rideshare car, she finally exhaled. Her phone buzzed again. A message from the stranger. Did you get it? She stared at the words, stunned by their simplicity. No pressure, no demand for proof, just concern. Yes, she replied. I am on my way home now. There was a pause. Then another message appeared. I am glad. That was all. Back in the apartment, she moved quietly, carefully preparing the bottle with hands that still shook slightly. When she lifted her baby from the crib, his eyes fluttered open, unfocused but trusting. He drank hungrily, as if nothing in the world mattered except this moment. She watched him the entire time. When he finished, she held him against her shoulder, listening to his breathing settle into something peaceful, something safe. Her phone buzzed again. She hesitated before checking it, unsure why her chest felt tight. Is he okay now? The message read. She smiled faintly through tears. Yes, he is sleeping. Good, he replied. That is what matters. She sat down on the couch, baby warm against her chest, and for the first time since losing her job, she allowed herself to rest. Not sleep, just rest. Minutes passed, then more. She did not expect another message, but one came anyway. You do not need to pay me back, he wrote, but if you want to talk, I am here. The words surprised her more than the money had. Talk. No one had offered that in a long time. She hesitated, then typed slowly. I do not usually talk to strangers. I understand, he replied. Neither do I. She almost laughed at that. Almost. She asked him why he helped. The response took longer this time. When someone asks for help without entitlement, he wrote, it usually means they have already tried everything else. She stared at the screen, feeling seen in a way that made her uncomfortable and grateful all at once. She did not ask what he did for a living. He did not ask her name. Instead, they talked about small things, about how late nights changed people, about how cities felt lonelier after midnight, about how responsibility could be both heavy and grounding at the same time. The conversation was gentle, unforced. Before she realized it, an hour had passed. Her phone buzzed one last time. You should sleep, he wrote. Tomorrow will be easier. She looked toward the bedroom, where her baby slept peacefully, formula finally settling his tiny stomach. Thank you, she typed. Not out of obligation this time, but because the words felt true. She set the phone down and leaned back against the couch, eyes closing. She did not know who the man on the other side of the screen was. She did not know his name, his face, or the world he lived in. She only knew this. He had helped her when it mattered, without asking for anything in return. And somewhere deep inside, she sensed that this was not the end of their conversation. Morning arrived quietly. Sunlight slipped through the thin curtains and rested on the floor, warming a corner of the room that had felt cold for weeks. She woke on the couch with a stiff neck and her phone still in her hand. For a brief second, she forgot everything. Then she remembered the store, the formula, the messages. She checked the time, 7:12 in the morning. The baby stirred in the bedroom, making soft sounds that told her he would be awake soon. She stood, stretched slowly, and moved with a care that had become second nature. Motherhood had taught her how to be quiet without being afraid. After feeding him, she sat at the small kitchen table with a mug of coffee that tasted weaker than it should have, but felt like a luxury anyway. She picked up her phone, unsure whether she should say anything. She did not want to intrude. The message from the night before still sat there. "You should sleep. Tomorrow will be easier." She typed a simple reply. "Good morning. Thank you again." She expected that to be the end of it. It was not. "Good morning," he wrote back. "How is he doing?" She smiled before she realized she was smiling. "He is good. He slept through the night." "That is a win," he replied. Something about that word made her feel lighter. They did not talk constantly. There were gaps. Hours passed between messages. But every time her phone buzzed, it felt steady, not urgent or demanding. She learned that he woke early and worked late, that he drank coffee black, that he disliked small talk, but listened carefully when people spoke about things that mattered to them. He learned that she used to enjoy reading before sleep, before nights became unpredictable, that she missed long walks, that she kept a notebook full of plans she had not yet been brave enough to throw away. Neither of them asked questions that crossed a line. At some point, she saved his number. She paused before naming the contact, thumb hovering over the screen. She typed, "Kind stranger." The days that followed were not magically better. Bills still waited. Emails went unanswered. Job applications disappeared into silence. But something had shifted. When things went wrong, she did not feel completely alone. Sometimes he checked in without prompting. "How was today? Did you eat? Do you need anything?" She always answered honestly. Sometimes the answer was yes. Sometimes it was no. He never pushed. Never made her feel like a problem to be solved. One evening, while the baby slept against her chest, she told him about the eviction notice. She regretted it immediately, afraid she had shared too much. The reply came slower than usual. "I am sorry you are carrying that," he wrote. "You should not have to do it alone." That sentence stayed with her. She did not tell him her full story, not yet. But she told him enough to feel understood, enough to trust the space between messages. Late one night, she caught herself looking forward to the sound of her phone. That realization scared her. She reminded herself that this was temporary, that kindness did not always mean permanence, that people came and went. Still, she kept talking. He never mentioned money again. Instead, he asked what she wanted, if everything were possible. The question surprised her. "I do not know," she admitted. "I have not thought about that in a long time." "You should," he replied, "even if it feels unrealistic." She closed her eyes and pictured the notebook she had not opened in months. "Maybe one day," she typed. "Maybe sooner than you think," he answered. She did not know it yet, but those quiet conversations, those ordinary check-ins, were laying the foundation for something neither of them could see clearly. A connection formed not through grand gestures, but through presence. And the mistake that had started it all no longer felt like a mistake at all. The invitation arrived in her email on a Tuesday morning. She almost deleted it. It looked official, polished, the kind of message that usually meant rejection or fine print she could not afford to misunderstand. But the subject line caught her attention. A community support event, open to the public, free childcare provided. She reread it twice. The location was downtown, inside a modern glass building she had passed many times but never entered. The name of the foundation sounded familiar, though she could not place why. She hesitated before responding. Then her phone buzzed. "Are you busy tomorrow evening?" he asked. The timing felt strange. "Not really," she replied. "Why?" "There is an event you might find helpful," he wrote. "No pressure, just information and resources." She agreed, telling herself it was practical, nothing more. The next evening, she dressed carefully, choosing the simplest outfit she owned. Clean, neutral, safe. She packed a diaper bag and double-checked everything, anxiety fluttering in her chest as she navigated the city by bus. The building was larger than she expected. Glass doors opened into a bright lobby filled with quiet conversation. Volunteers moved with purpose. A banner hung near the entrance, displaying the name of the foundation in bold letters. She stopped walking. The name clicked into place. Her heart began to race. She stepped inside anyway, pushing the feeling down. She reminded herself that she belonged here. This was for families like hers. The room filled quickly. People took seats. Soft music faded. A woman stepped onto the stage and welcomed everyone, thanking donors and partners. Then she said a name. The room applauded. A man walked onto the stage. Her breath caught. It was him. Not the voice, not the tone. Him. The man from her phone. The man she had spoken to late at night. The man who asked if her baby had eaten. He stood taller than she imagined, dressed simply but with quiet authority. The room shifted when he spoke. People listened. She felt dizzy. She barely heard the introduction. Chief Executive Officer, founder, philanthropist. The words blurred together. Her phone buzzed in her hand. "I am sorry you had to find out this way," the message read. Her throat tightened. Everything suddenly made sense. The calm, the precision, the way he never hesitated when making decisions, the resources, the confidence that never crossed into arrogance. She felt exposed, small, foolish. She stood before the speech ended, heart pounding, and moved toward the exit. She needed air, space, distance. In the hallway, her emotions finally caught up to her. Embarrassment burned first, then anger, then a sharp, aching disappointment she had not expected. She had not been talking to a stranger. She had been talking to a powerful man who could change lives with a signature, and he had let her believe otherwise. Footsteps approached behind her. She did not turn around. "I did not hide to deceive you," he said gently. "I did not know who you were when you texted me, and by the time it mattered, I was afraid the truth would change everything." She turned then, eyes steady but hurt. "It did," she said quietly. The silence between them was heavy. For the first time since the mistake that started it all, neither of them knew what to say next. They stood in the hallway longer than either of them expected. The noise from the event faded behind closed doors, replaced by the low hum of air conditioning and distant footsteps. People passed by without looking twice, unaware that something fragile was unraveling in that quiet space. She was the first to speak again. "You knew who you were," she said, her voice steady but tight. "You knew what your name meant, what your position meant, and you let me keep talking like I was just some desperate woman texting the wrong number." He did not interrupt. She took a slow breath, forcing herself to continue. "I did not choose you because of who you are," she said. "I chose to trust you because I thought you were just a person, someone without power over me." His jaw tightened. "I never wanted power over you," he replied. "I only wanted to help." "That is the problem," she said softly. "Help from you is never just help. Not when you can fix things I cannot even touch." The words hung between them. She thought of every message she had sent, every honest answer, every quiet hope she had allowed herself to feel. Suddenly, it all felt exposed, like her life had been laid out for inspection. "I did not want to be a charity case," she said. "I wanted to be seen as an equal." "You were," he said immediately. "You are." She shook her head. "You decided that," she said. "I did not." Her phone vibrated in her hand, a reminder notification. Rent due soon. She turned the screen off without looking. "I need distance," she said. "I need to know which parts of this were real and which parts were just convenient." He nodded slowly, as if he had expected this. "I understand," he said, "and I will respect that." She hesitated, surprised by the lack of resistance. "You are not going to follow me?" she asked. "No," he replied. "If I do that, I prove your point." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and for a moment she saw the same man who had typed calm messages at midnight, the man who asked about ounces instead of excuses. That made it harder. "I meant what I said," he added quietly. "I did not plan this. I did not stage it. I did not test you. You reached out by accident, and I answered as a person, not as a title." "Maybe," she said, "but now I know the title exists." She stepped back, creating space between them. "I need time," she said. "Please do not message me, not for a while." He swallowed, then nodded. "Okay," he said. "I will be here if you decide to reach out." She turned away before he could say anything else. The bus ride home felt longer than usual. The city lights blurred past the window as her thoughts tangled together. Gratitude fought with anger. Trust wrestled with doubt. When she reached her apartment, she checked on her baby first, pressing a kiss to his forehead as he slept peacefully. Only then did she allow herself to sit down and feel the weight of what had happened. She had asked a stranger for help. She had found connection, and now she had walked away from it, unsure whether she was protecting herself or losing something rare. Her phone remained silent, and for the first time since that wrong message was sent, the quiet felt heavy again. Days passed without messages. At first, the silence felt intentional, like a wall she had built to keep herself steady. She focused on routine, feeding, cleaning, sending applications into the quiet void of the internet. She told herself that distance was strength. Then, small things began to change. An email arrived from a local housing assistance office, not generic, addressed to her by name. It explained eligibility clearly, without condescension, and offered an appointment time that actually worked around childcare. She frowned, confused. The next morning, another message appeared in her inbox. A job posting forwarded from an unfamiliar address, a part-time position with flexible hours, remote, eligible. The company name meant nothing to her, but the role matched her skills exactly. There was no note attached, no explanation. That afternoon, she received a text from a number she did not recognize. A community childcare center confirming a temporary slot for her baby during weekday mornings, covered for the first month by a donor. Anonymous. Her chest tightened. She sat on the couch, phone resting in her lap, staring at the pattern forming in front of her. Help. But not directly from him. Not a message. Not money. Not an appearance. Just doors opening quietly, one by one. That night, after putting the baby to sleep, she pulled open the drawer beneath the counter and took out the folded eviction notice. She stared at it for a long moment, then placed it back. She was not safe yet, but she was not drowning anymore. 2 days later, her phone buzzed with a message she did not expect. It was from him. "I said I would give you space," the message read. "This is not me asking for anything. I only wanted you to know that none of the help you received required favors, meetings, or gratitude. If that matters to you, then it matters to me." She stared at the screen, heart racing. Another message followed. "I did not step in as a chief executive officer. I stepped in as someone who once needed help and wished it had come without strings." She closed her eyes. For the first time since the reveal, she did not feel small. She felt respected. She looked at the can of baby formula on the counter, nearly empty again. She remembered the first night, the wrong message, the relief that had nearly knocked her over. She opened her phone and scrolled back to the very beginning of their conversation. The apology, the calm questions, the word good. She typed slowly, deliberately. "You kept your word," she wrote. "You did not force yourself into my life." There was a pause, then the reply. "I wanted you to choose, not feel obligated." Tears blurred her vision, but this time, they did not come from fear. They came from clarity. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was a man who had chosen restraint over control, humility over recognition. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew this. The gesture that mattered most was not the money or the resources or the power he had never used against her. It was the fact that, when given every advantage, he had chosen to meet her at eye level. And for the first time, she felt ready to decide what came next. The message sat on her screen for a long time before she sent it. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" She read it twice, then a third time, making sure it sounded like a choice, not a debt. When she finally pressed send, her hands were steady. The reply came a few minutes later. "I would like that," he wrote, "only if you are comfortable." They met on a Saturday morning at a small cafe halfway between her neighborhood and downtown. Neutral ground, simple. She arrived early, baby asleep in the stroller, sunlight warming the sidewalk. When he walked in, there was no entourage, no attention drawn to him, just a man in a plain jacket, scanning the room until he saw her. They smiled at the same time. There was no apology this time, no explanations, just conversation, slow, careful, honest. They talked about work, about exhaustion, about fear, about what it meant to rebuild something that had broken quietly, without drama. He did not offer solutions. She did not hide her reality. When the baby stirred, he watched with gentle curiosity, not distance. "He is beautiful," he said softly. She nodded. "He saved me more times than he knows." Weeks passed. Coffee became walks. Walks became shared meals. Not extravagant, not staged. Just two lives learning how to stand side by side without imbalance. She accepted the job offer. The childcare arrangement continued. Her footing grew steadier. She paid part of the rent, then all of it. The eviction notice stayed in the drawer, untouched, until one afternoon she finally threw it away. He never rushed her. He never used his position to impress her. Instead, he showed up, consistently, quietly. One evening, months later, as they sat on her couch with the baby asleep between them, she reached for her phone and opened the old message thread. The first apology, the fear, the mistake. She showed it to him. "This," she said, "is where everything changed." He smiled faintly. "You texted the wrong number," he said. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "I texted the right person by accident." He took her hand, not as a promise, but as a question. She squeezed it back. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of how two lives had quietly intersected because of hunger, kindness, and a single wrong message. Sometimes the best beginnings do not come from careful plans. They come from mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes lead you exactly where you were meant to be.